Now, last time I think we talked about, the writing. Today we are going to continue with the revision of, the structures. Some of these structures were taken before. Just we want to revise you with these structures. As usual, here we have the goals of the lesson. The students will be able to use independent clauses with and, but, or, so, and yet. To write past sentences with dependent time clauses. Express enthusiasm with intensifiers. Express enthusiasm with adjectives. Also here in number 5, using the conditional sentences to talk about causes and results. Expressing necessity and lack of necessity. Here we are going to just to divide the lesson into 2 classes. Today we are going to talk about the independent clauses with the coordinated conjunctions. Look at your books on page 64. Who can read the first example? Here. Can read the example? Yes. Dia.
She didn't speak to anyone and nobody spoke to her.
Good. She didn't speak to anyone and nobody spoke to her. Adnan, read the second example, please.
Okay. They rushed to the hospital, but they were too late.
Good. Anwar.
Okay. He could buy the book or he could borrow it from the library.
Good. He could buy the book or he could borrow it from the library. Next, who can read it? Omar Tariq. Nurdin.
Yes, teacher.
Yes, please read.
First one.
Number 4, the fourth sentence. He wanted his son.
He wanted his son to study English, yet he studied the math. He
Good.
studied math.
Ali Shurman. Read the next. Ahmed Al-Hurani.
Yes, mister, can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead. Read the fifth sentence, please. He was sick. Look at your screen.
Yes, mister. She was sick, so she couldn't attend the meeting.
Good. She was sick, so she, couldn't attend the meeting. Good. Now, today we are going to talk about, the independent clauses. Now, what do we mean by dependent clauses? First, any clause consists of what? A group of words. Clause means, sentence, complete sentence. The clause consists of a group of words that contains a subject and a verb and has, a complete meaning. A group of words that contains a subject and a verb. Now we have 2 kinds of clauses. First one is independent clause. The second is dependent clause. Here we are going to classify or to differentiate between the independent and dependent. Okay? Now let's move to the first, independent clause. Always independent clauses express complete thought and can stand, by themselves. This is about the independent clauses. Any independent clause expresses a complete meaning and can stand alone. It has a subject, a verb, and it what? It is it has a complete meaning. Look at the first example. When we say, for example, he passed his final exam, I think the meaning is clear to us. He passed his final exam. That's it. We understood everything. We understood that passed his final exam. No need to explain more. Just this is what an independent clause. So independent clause expresses what? A full meaning, a complete meaning, a complete thought, and it can stand by itself. Now, the second part of the clauses, which is called dependent clause. Look at the sentence. Because he passed his final exam. Now, what do you think? Does it express a complete meaning?
No, it doesn't have a meaning.
Yes, it doesn't, express a complete meaning. And it cannot stand by itself as a sentence. It needs what? It needs more clauses to what? To be completed. So we cannot say that this is has a complete meaning. We cannot say that this sentence has a complete meaning. Because he passed his final exam, so you realize here the meaning is incomplete. It needs more words to be what? To be completed. We call this kind of sentences dependent clause. So the dependent clause doesn't express a complete meaning and cannot stand by itself. It cannot stand alone as a sentence. It needs to be what? To be joined to another clause in order to avoid creating a sentence fragment. So this is about, the dependent clause. Okay. Now, what makes one clause independent and another, dependent? Look here. Who can read the example? Dia,
Because he passed his final exam.
what do you think? Is it an independent or dependent clause?
Dependent.
Good. It is dependent clause because, you realize that the meaning is what? The meaning is incomplete. So this is what dependent. Look at the second. Who can read the second? Yes, Anwar?
Okay. He passed his final exam.
He passed his final exam. So you realize that this sentence is what?
Complete,
Independent.
independent. Yes.
Independent. Why? Because the meaning is completed. It has a complete meaning. Now, what makes one clause independent and another, dependent? If the sentence has a complete meaning, so it will be independent. If doesn't have, a complete meaning, so it will be what? Dependent. We have some words that makes what? We have some words that make, the sentences dependent clause. Because, for example, makes the sentence what? Dependent. Look at the words. Here we are going to use a coordinating, conjunction. Now, if you remember, the coordinating conjunctions like what? And, or, so, but, etc. These are called coordinators or coordinator conjunctions. They usually coordinate or join independent clause with another independent clause. Here we have to use what? A comma before the coordinating. So the coordinating conjunctions will join an independent clause and another an independent clause. Look at the example. Who can read the example? Yes, Ahmed Horani. Read the example here.
Yes, mister. He couldn't watch the show, so he decided to tape it.
Now, what do you think? How many sentences do we have?
2.
2. Are they independent clauses or dependent clauses?
Independent.
Good. They are independent clauses because, each one has a complete meaning. He couldn't watch the show. You realize that the sentence is what? Is a meaningful one. is a meaningful sentence. He decided to tape it. Also here, you know, it has what a complete meaning. So we can join the two independent clauses with a coordinating conjunction. Here we have some of the, you know, coordinating conjunctions like for, and, nor, etc., but, or, yet, so, etc. These are called what? Coordinating conjunctions. Fanboys. F for A and nor, etc. We usually use a comma only when the coordinated conjunction joins two independent clauses. Look here, we have two independent. We use comma before, you know, the coordinated conjunction. So this is about the first point. Who can read, please? Who can read the explanation? Hamza, read. Read the instructions and the explanations. Where are you, Hamza?
I'm here.
Yes, please. Read. Please raise your voice, please.
Okay. Independent clauses with bad and but or so and yet. An independent clause express a complete thought and can stand alone as a sentence. A meteorite crashed through their two-story house.
So you realize this is an independent clause because, you know, the sentence has a meaningful meaning and, you know, it has a complete thought. It can stand by itself as a sentence. Okay, complete. Two or more independent clauses.
Can be combined with coordinating conjunctions words such as and, but, or, so, and yet. When a sentence includes two independent clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction, use a comma before the coordinating conjunction. My neighbors said.
Yes, neighbors said they hear a traffic noise.
Yet no one reported to the police.
Yet means what here? What does it mean yet? Yet means but. Okay, neighbors said that they hear a terrific noise. Yet no one reported it to the police. Mr. and Mrs. Foss's house was destroyed. So they moved. So in these two examples, in each example, we have two independent clauses joined by what? A coordinating conjunction. Now, if you use a coordinating conjunction to join two independent clauses, we have to use a comma before, you know, the coordinating conjunction. Okay, so this is about the first point. Okay, now let's move to the next point. Using, you know, the past with the dependent time clauses. Who can read the example? Adnan?
After they got married, they bought a house.
Good. After they got married, they bought a house. Okay. Next. Dia?
As soon as I saw him, I knew there was something wrong.
Good. Now you realize here we have what? We have a dependent clause and independent clause. Now, which one is independent clause? The first sentence. Which sentence is independent and which sentence is dependent? Ahmad al-Hurani.
Yes, mister.
Which one
Can you
is
hear me?
the independent? Yes, I hear you.
The independent one is I knew there was something wrong.
Good. I knew there was something, wrong, or they bought a house. These sentences are independent clauses because they can stand by, themselves. About, after they got married, as soon as I saw him, you realize that these are what?
Dependent.
Dependent clauses because they need to be completed, with other clause. Okay, let's continue with the examples. Who can read the next example? Anwar?
Okay. Since he was a boy, he has lived there.
Good. Since he was a boy, he has lived there. Good. Next, Dia.
I was very happy when I got my test back.
Good. I was very happy when I got my test back. Next, Hamza.
Yes, teacher. I got my job
While I was in college. I got my job while I was, you realize here we can change the order of the sentences. We can start with dependent, then independent, then where, with the time clause, then the dependent clause. Okay, look at these words. These words are called, subordinating clauses, subordinating conjunctions, yes, when, as soon as, before, after, while, until, since. We call them subordinating conjunctions. These conjunctions always come with the dependent clauses. Dependent clauses. They used to join a dependent clause to an independent clause. As we said before, a dependent clause is, incomplete thought, has incomplete meaning. Time clause, which we call it dependent, then a comma, then main clause independent. Who can read the example? Yes, Ali Shurman, are you here?
Can I read?
Yes. Nurdin.
After I went to USA, I was better at communicating.
Good. After I went to USA, I was, better at communicating. Yeah, here must be what? After I had gone to USA, I was better at communicating. Now, the sentence which has, the subordinating clause conjunction is called what? The time clause. Time clause, the sentence which has one of these words. And, the main clause is the independent one. I was better at communicating. This is what has a full, or a complete meaning. But when I say after I went to USA, here this is what dependent clause. The past time clause can come after or before the main clause. Independent. Use a comma when the time clause comes at the beginning. The past time clause can come after or before the main clause. We can change the order of the sentences. We can say I was better at communicating after I had gone to USA. But if we start with the time clause, we have to put what? A comma. Use a comma when the time clause comes at the beginning. Okay, who can read? Adnan, read the explanation.
Yes, mister. The past with dependent time clauses. We can talk about a past event using a time clause when, as soon as, before, after, while, until, and since. When the time clause comes before the main clause, use a comma between the two clauses.
Good.
Read the example.
Read the example, please.
When they arrived home, they discovered to their amazement that a meteorite had crashed through the roof.
When they arrived home, they discovered to their amazement meteorite crashed. Good. Again, just if we talk about a past event using a time clause with when, as soon as, before, after, while, until, and since, when the time clause comes before the main clause, use a comma between the two clauses. Look at the example. Here we start with what? With the dependent clause or with the time clause. When they arrived home, comma, they discovered to their amazement that a meteorite had crashed through the roof. Okay. Look here. Just we want to write N if the clause is independent and D if it is what? Dependent. Number one. Yes, number one. Here we are going to see whether the sentence is independent or dependent. Yes, Anwar, read the first one.
Okay. When I drive my car. This is dependent.
Dependent, good. The second.
Faisal?
Yes, Ibrahim Mansour, are you here? Asaf. Muayyad.
Hey, Mister.
Yes, yes, Ubada. Read the second sentence.
My teacher taught me how to read.
What do you think? Is it, independent or dependent?
Independent.
Good, independent, because, it can stand by itself. And it has what? A meaningful, sentence. Yes, it is a meaningful sentence. Next. Who can try?
Can I?
يلا أحمد الحوراني.
Yes, Mister. After it rained, it's dependent.
Dependent. It has what? Incomplete meaning. It has incomplete meaning.
Can I?
Yes, Diya.
She traveled to Spain independent.
Independent, because here the meaning is completed. Good. Okay, now let's stop here. We will continue tomorrow for the rest of the structures. Now go to your homework. We have a homework. Let's look at your homework. So please